The silent void of space shattered as the massive galactic hegemony warships tore through the fabric of reality just beyond Mars. Their arrival was heralded by no diplomatic envoys, no warnings, just the sudden appearance of over 30 dreadnoughts, each larger than Earth's tallest skyscraper. The vessels gleamed with an unnatural purple-black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating dark silhouettes against the stars. In his command chair aboard the flagship Dominator, Admiral Tay gazed at the blue-green planet on his view screen with cold calculation. A slight smile crossed his sharp features as he straightened his ceremonial collar. Earth would be conquest number 143 in his illustrious career, another primitive world to add to the hegemony's growing collection. "Prepare the standard intimidation display," he ordered his crew of loyal officers. "Let them witness true power before they kneel." On Earth, ordinary life ground to a halt as the alien ships became visible in daylight skies worldwide. Traffic stopped in Tokyo as office workers pointed upward at the ominous shapes blocking the sun. Children in Rio were rushed indoors by panicked parents. Social media exploded with images, theories, and prayers before military commands worldwide initiated emergency communications blackouts. Inside the United Nations emergency bunker beneath Geneva, world leaders gathered in unprecedented unity. Old enemies sat side by side, religious differences and border disputes suddenly meaningless in the face of an existential threat. "They haven't fired yet," noted President Han of South Korea, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "That suggests they want something." "Or they're toying with us," replied Prime Minister Choi, wiping sweat from his brow. As if on cue, every electronic device on Earth capable of receiving a signal simultaneously displayed the same message: attention. Primitive species, you are now property of the galactic hegemony. Surrender all military capabilities and prepare for integration. You have 24 Earth hours to comply. The bunker erupted in overlapping voices until General Li of the Chinese military forces slammed his fist on the table. "We need time. Whatever we do, we need more time." President Han nodded. "We request diplomatic talks. Make them think we're scared, but cooperative." While politicians worked to delay the inevitable, something remarkable was happening in secure military installations around the world. Major Suk of South Korean intelligence was the first to notice the pattern in the aliens' ship movements. "Look at this," she told her team, pointing to satellite imagery. "Their formations are mathematically perfect, too perfect." In bunkers across Earth, other analysts made similar observations. The hegemony ships moved in precise formations that never varied, their patrol patterns following exact mathematical progressions. At India's technology center, Dr. G looked up from his computer with widening eyes. "They're running on algorithms," he whispered. "Advanced ones, yes, but they're still algorithms. There's no creativity, no adaptation." This critical insight spread through encrypted channels to military strategists worldwide. The aliens, for all their technological superiority, fought like perfect machines, which meant they could be predicted. Admiral Tay grew increasingly frustrated as the humans requested clarification after clarification about surrender terms. His species valued efficiency above all else, and these delays seemed pointless. Still, he indulged them. After all, the outcome was inevitable. "Tell them they have 12 hours now, not 24, he commanded his communications officer. "They're stalling. Tactics are transparent." What Tay didn't know was that each moment bought was precious. In a secret facility beneath the Gobi Desert, engineers worked feverishly to adapt Earth's satellite network to track the subtle energy fluctuations preceding the aliens' faster-than-light jumps. In Brazil's rainforest bunker, programmers developed simulation software that could predict the hegemony's movements based on their observed patterns. Meanwhile, Admiral Tay allowed a small delegation of humans to visit his flagship for surrender discussions. The 5 representatives, one from each inhabited continent, arrived in simple shuttlecraft appearing appropriately awed by the hegemony's technology. "Your species shows wisdom in accepting its place," Tay told them, seated on his elevated command chair. Mechanical translators converted his complex vibrational language to human speech. "Resistance has never succeeded against us. We seek to understand our new role," replied Ambassador Yun with carefully practiced humility. Her real mission, however, was to observe and gather intelligence. Every word, every gesture, every reaction from the aliens was being analyzed by Earth's brightest minds. What she discovered shocked her. Despite their technological advancement, the hegemony was incredibly rigid. Their society operated on strict hierarchies and unwavering protocols. Their military doctrine hadn't changed in centuries because it hadn't needed to until now. As the human delegation departed, Tay felt satisfied. Soon this world would join the countless others that supplied resources and labor to the mighty. Hegemony. He never suspected that the supposedly primitive creatures had already identified the fatal flaw in his perfect war machine. Back on Earth, as the deadline approached, military forces didn't surrender. They dispersed. Traditional formations were abandoned. Instead of futilely massing weapons that would be easily targeted, Earth's defenders prepared for something the hegemony had never encountered: adaptive, creative, and utterly unpredictable resistance. The final hour before the deadline, President Han addressed a world poised between terror and determination. "They expect us to either surrender or fight according to conventional wisdom. We will do neither. They struck Earth first without provocation or warning. Now they'll learn what happens when you underestimate humanity." As Admiral Tay's countdown reached zero, he prepared to demonstrate the hegemony's overwhelming power against this stubborn world. What he couldn't know was that Earth's defenders were already several steps ahead, preparing a response that would shake the foundations of the galaxy's oldest empire. Admiral Tay stood at the massive viewport of his command ship, his patience worn thin by humanity's continued delays. The initial amusement he felt at their diplomatic stalling had curdled into irritation. His officers maintained respectful distances, aware of their commander's darkening mood. These humans mistake patience for weakness, he announced, turning sharply to face his war council. "It's time they understand what defiance costs." With a casual gesture toward the tactical display, he selected 3 cities: Shanghai, Cairo, and Mexico City. "A demonstration," he said coldly. "Maximum visual impact, minimal strategic value. Let the survivors carry the message." The hegemony's weapon systems hummed to life as massive energy collectors pulled power from nearby stars through artificial wormholes. The technology had conquered 100 worlds before Earth, precise, devastating, and utterly unstoppable by primitive defenses. On Earth, only seconds of warning came before the attack. The sky above Shanghai turned blood red as atmosphere ignited. A pillar of blinding light connected heaven and earth for 3 terrible seconds. When it vanished, 20 square miles of one of humanity's oldest cities had been reduced to smoking. Galactic Cairo and Mexico City fell moments later. In his bunker, General Park watched the death toll climb with a face carved from stone. 7 million souls gone in less than a minute. The UN Emergency Council sat in stunned silence as satellite imagery showed the devastation. "This changes everything," someone whispered. "No," Park responded, his voice steady despite the horror. "This changes nothing. We fight." In the smoldering ruins of Mexico City's University District, Dr. Yoon dug through collapsed concrete with bleeding hands. Her laboratory was gone. Her colleagues were gone. Her husband and daughter had been visiting her at work when the attack came. They were gone too. Only Yoon remained, pulled from the rubble by rescue workers. As medical staff attempted to lead her to an evacuation transport, she broke away, stumbling back toward her ruined lab. "The data," she mumbled through swollen lips. "I need to recover the data." The night before the attack, her research team had been analyzing unusual radiation patterns emanating from the alien vessels. Something in those readings mattered now, more than ever. With the help of reluctant rescue workers, she recovered the backup drives from a shielded compartment. Within hours, she was working from a makeshift lab in an underground facility in the Andes Mountains, grief channeled into furious determination. Admiral Tay observed Earth's response to his demonstration with mild surprise. Instead of surrender communications, he detected increased movement. Rather than massing forces for a doomed conventional defense, Earth's militaries were dispersing into smaller units, going mobile, becoming harder to track. Interesting, he mused. They don't understand hopelessness. His second-in-command, sub-commander, Ho, approached with caution. The humans are behaving atypically, Admiral. Previous species at this technology level attempted direct counterattacks or immediate surrender. Tay waved away the concern. Irrelevant variations. Proceed with standard conquest protocol. But Earth's response continued to deviate from the hegemony's expectations. Instead of targeting the invaders' obvious strength, humanity probed for weaknesses. In her mountain laboratory, Dr. Yoon hadn't slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red-rimmed as she stared at display screens showing energy patterns from the hegemony ships. Fellow scientists worried about her mental state, but none dared interrupt her work. "It's here," she whispered suddenly, freezing a particular frame. "Look at this energy spike. It precedes weapons discharge by exactly 32.7 seconds. She expanded the data, showing the distinctive radiation signature. Their weapon systems build up power in a predictable pattern before they can fire. There's our warning system. Within hours, the discovery spread through secure channels to military commands worldwide. Detecting these energy signatures wouldn't stop the attacks, but it would give people precious seconds to seek shelter. General Park took this information and built something more ambitious. If they could detect when and where the hegemony would strike, they could stage strategic evacuations and then use the devastation to their advantage. The aliens' first ground invasion came 2 days later. Massive troop carriers descended on strategic locations around the globe, disgorging battalions of hegemony soldiers in mechanized combat suits. They moved with precision, each unit following optimized assault patterns refined across centuries of conquest. But Earth was ready. When hegemony forces landed in the Amazon rainforest, seeking to secure rare mineral deposits, they found their sensors confused by the dense canopy. Their perfect formations became a liability in the uneven terrain. Indigenous guides led Brazilian special forces through hidden paths, striking at the invaders before melting back into the jungle. In the Siberian wilderness, Russian and Chinese coalition forces pulled the aliens into carefully planned killing zones, using the harsh environment as a weapon. The hegemony's combat suits, designed for optimal performance across standardized conditions, struggled with the extreme cold. Most surprising to the invaders was humanity's willingness to sacrifice infrastructure. When hegemony forces secured an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia, they followed standard protocol by establishing a defensive perimeter. They never expected the humans to remotely detonate the entire facility, engulfing 3 battalions in flames. In his command ship, Admiral Tay received casualty reports with growing disbelief. The conquest algorithm was failing. Across every continent, Earth's defenders refused to fight conventionally. They struck from shadows, used primitive but effective traps, and seemed to anticipate hegemony movements. "How are they predicting our deployments?" he demanded, smashing a tactical display in rare emotional display. "Their technology can't possibly track our communication signals." Sub-Commander Ho hesitated before answering. "They appear to be analyzing our tactical patterns, Admiral." "Our standard battle algorithms are perfect," Tay interrupted, "tested across 100 conquests. Yet the humans seem to be learning them," Ho replied quietly. On Earth, General Park stood before a global coalition of military leaders. Behind him, displays showed hegemony casualties mounting across multiple theaters. "We've bloodied their nose more," he announced, "but this is just beginning. They still hold orbital superiority, and their technology outmatches ours by centuries. We need to accelerate our plans." In her lab, Dr. Yoon looked up from her work as a military courier arrived with new sensor data captured from a downed hegemony scout ship. For the first time since the attack, something close to hope flickered in her eyes. "Their ships are powerful," she said, studying the readings, "but they're predictable, and in war predictability is a weakness we can exploit." Admiral Tay paced the gleaming deck of his command chamber, the soft hum of advanced technology contrasting with the storm brewing within him. The campaign that should have been a routine conquest had become an embarrassment. His reflection in the polished floor showed a face tightened with fury. "Enough of this distant warfare," he snapped at his officers. "Identify their command structure and bring their leaders to me. Cut off the head and the body will die." Elite hegemony shock troops deployed in stealth pods designed to slip through Earth's makeshift detection grid. These weren't the standard conquest forces. These were the vanquishers, warriors bred and augmented specifically for high-value extractions. Their armor, a shifting matte black that absorbed both light and sound, contained neural interfaces that made them extensions of their weapons. The first target was the underground command center near Geneva. Intelligence gathered from orbital. Scans suggested this facility coordinated much of Earth's resistance. The vanquishers breached the outer defenses with surgical precision, their movements a blur of practiced efficiency. What they encountered inside defied their combat algorithms. The human defenders didn't retreat to protected positions, as the tactical manual predicted. Instead, ordinary staff workers, analysts, technicians, even cafeteria personnel fought alongside trained soldiers. An older maintenance worker tackled a vanquisher, detonating a makeshift explosive that killed them both but collapsed a corridor, protecting retreating officials. "They're sacrificing themselves," reported squad leader Jin through the neural link, genuine confusion in his tone. "Non-combatants are engaging in suicide attacks." Similar reports flooded in from other extraction teams worldwide. In a Bangkok command post, the hegemony forces cornered a group of civilian advisors. Their combat computers calculated a 100% surrender probability. Instead, the humans formed a defensive circle and fought to the last person. Aboard his flagship, Admiral Tay struggled to process these developments. "Their behavior violates basic survival instinct," he told his senior staff. "Every species we've encountered prioritizes self-preservation. These humans fight beyond logical stopping points." Subcommander Ho, who had been studying Earth's cultural transmissions, offered a hesitant analysis. "They appear driven by abstract concepts, freedom, dignity, future generations. Their literature glorifies sacrifice for collective benefit." "Irrelevant," Tay dismissed. "No rational being chooses certain death over potential survival under new authority." Yet the evidence continued mounting. The hegemony's perfect understanding of rational combat behavior had become their weakness against an enemy that rejected calculation in favor of desperate courage. Meanwhile, deep beneath the ruins of what was once MIT, Professor Kang led a team of mathematicians and computer scientists in a different kind of battle. For weeks, they had been capturing fragments of hegemony communications, searching for patterns in the seemingly impenetrable encryption. "Their mathematics is beautiful," Kang admitted, eyes red from sleepless nights. "But it's also arrogant. They haven't updated their encryption in centuries because no one has ever broken it." His team had discovered something remarkable about hegemony communications. They were based on perfectly predictable mathematical constants. Advanced, yes, but unchanging. The aliens' confidence in their superiority meant they never varied their codes. When the breakthrough came, it happened suddenly. A junior programmer named G stood up from her terminal, hands shaking. "I'm in," she whispered. "Their entire command network. I can see everything." The room erupted in controlled chaos as information began flooding their systems. Tactical plans, ship deployments, and most valuable of all, technical specifications of hegemony weaponry. Within hours, this intelligence reached military installations worldwide. For the first time, humanity could see the full scope of the hegemony's war machine and its vulnerabilities. In orbit above Earth, Captain Kim reviewed the stolen data one final time before addressing the pilots under her command. The hangar bay around them housed 12 experimental spacecraft, products of reverse-engineered alien technology, combined with desperate human innovation. "These ships aren't pretty," she told the assembled pilots, gesturing to the angular craft behind her. "They're not comfortable. Half the systems are held together with code we barely understand. But they have two advantages. They're invisible to hegemony sensors, and they're piloted by humans who understand something the enemy doesn't." She paused, meeting each pilot's eyes. "Unpredictability is our edge. The hegemony excels at fighting." Opponents who follow rules were going to break every rule in their book. The mission was audacious to the point of insanity, a direct attack on 3 hegemony carrier ships positioned over the Indian Ocean. These massive vessels served as deployment platforms for the smaller attack craft terrorizing Earth's defenses. As the experimental ships slipped from Earth's atmosphere, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting radar, Captain Kim felt a strange calm. The thrust technology stolen from damaged hegemony scouts pushed them silently through space, approaching the carriers from precisely the vectors the aliens considered impossible for primitive human craft. "Hold formation until my mark," Kim whispered into her comm. "Remember, they're looking for organized attack patterns. We're going to give them chaos." When they reached attack range, instead of forming conventional approaches, Kim's squadron scattered in 12 different directions. The hegemony's automated defense systems, designed to counter logical attack vectors, struggled to track the seemingly random movements. Kim's fighter dove directly toward the first carrier's propulsion array, a suicide run by any rational calculation. At the last possible second, she fired the experimental weapons and pulled away in a maneuver that strained both ship and pilot to their limits. The carrier's shields, calibrated to stop sustained bombardment, couldn't adapt to the single, precisely targeted pulse. A chain reaction spread through the massive ship as secondary systems failed in cascading sequence. Across the battlefield, the other pilots followed similar unpredictable attack patterns. 3 hegemony carriers, each capable of deploying hundreds of fighters, erupted in silent explosions that briefly outshone the stars. On his command ship, Admiral Tay received the news with uncharacteristic shock. Before he could formulate a response, a transmission from the Hegemony High Council interrupted his thoughts. "Your campaign progresses unacceptably," came the cold voice of Supreme Counselor Ryu. 3 capital ships lost to primitive craft? "The Council questions your competence, Admiral." Tay stiffened. "The humans demonstrate unusual capabilities and behaviors. They require a modified approach." "They require nothing except subjugation," Ryu interrupted. "End this embarrassment quickly or be replaced. The hegemony does not tolerate failure." As the transmission ended, Tay turned to stare at the blue planet on his view screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar, stirring in his mind: doubt. In her damaged but functioning spacecraft limping back to Earth, Captain Kim allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. The mission had cost lives, good pilots lost to the void. But they had proven something vital. The invincible hegemony could bleed. The war room beneath Mount Fuji had once been a tourist attraction, a Cold War relic kept as a historical curiosity. Now it served its original purpose as military leaders. From every continent, huddled around a 3-dimensional holographic display of Earth's orbital space. The blue dots representing human vessels were laughably outnumbered by the red clusters marking hegemony warships. "This is madness," whispered one general, voicing what many thought. "We can't possibly win a direct confrontation." General Park stepped forward, his weathered face illuminated by the hologram's glow. "We aren't fighting to win a battle. We're fighting to send a message." The plan had been developed over sleepless weeks, combining the stolen hegemony technical data with humanity's greatest advantage, creativity born from desperation. Earth would strike with everything it had, not to achieve total victory, but to demonstrate something the hegemony had never encountered, a species willing to risk extinction rather than submit. As dawn broke over the Pacific, the counterattack began with no warning, no dramatic speech. Suddenly and silently, Earth moved. Aboard the hegemony flagship, Admiral Tay received confused reports from his sensor officers. Multiple launches detected from Earth surface, Admiral. Pattern. There is no pattern. Tay strode to the main view screen, watching as thousands of objects rose from Earth's atmosphere. Some were clearly missiles, others small fighting craft. But many defied classification. Civilian satellites repurposed as weapons, space debris, collected and hurled with makeshift propulsion, even commercial spacecraft retrofitted with explosive payloads. "They're throwing everything at us," Sub-Commander Ho observed, disbelief evident in his voice. "It's suicide," Tay replied dismissively. Deploy standard defensive formations. The hegemony fleet shifted with precise coordination. Their ships, arranging themselves into mathematically optimized defensive configurations, developed over centuries of galactic conquest. Their automated defense systems calculated intercept trajectories for the approaching threats, prioritizing targets based on damage potential. But the calculations failed. Earth's attackers refused to follow predictable paths. Missiles would approach on direct courses, then suddenly veer off or split into multiple warheads. Small fighters would charge directly at hegemony ships, only to use the larger vessels as shields against their own comrades' fire. Most confounding of all, many Earth vessels were empty, remotely piloted or completely automated. The hegemony gunners, trained to target life signs as a priority, wasted precious resources destroying decoys. On her command carrier, Captain Kim coordinated the real attack, with most of the hegemony's attention focused on the chaotic diversionary assault. She led 3 squadrons of advanced fighters, humanity's best pilots in their best machines, toward Admiral Tay's flagship. "Remember, we need precision," she told her pilots. "Disable, don't destroy." The sleek black fighters approached from the flagship's blind spot, hidden in the shadow of Earth's moon. Their weapons were specially calibrated based on the stolen specifications of hegemony shield technology. The first shot struck with surgical precision, overloading the flagship's port shield generators. The massive vessel shuddered, emergency systems blaring as secondary explosions cascaded through its propulsion section. Admiral Tay steadied himself against his command chair as the deck lurched beneath him. "Impossible," he muttered, watching. Status displays flash critical warnings across his screens. "Admiral, we're being boarded," his security chief reported, panic breaking through their usual disciplined tone. Before Tay could respond, the bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke strode figures in matte black combat suits, human shapes, but moving with the enhanced speed and strength of advanced exoskeletons, reverse-engineered from damaged hegemony technology. At their head walked Commander Ju, her face visible through a transparent section of her helmet. Unlike her squad, who carried weapons, she held only a simple metal device in her palm. "Admiral Tay," she announced, her voice amplified through external speakers. "Your fleet is in disarray, your flagship crippled. You have 2 options: surrender or die with your bridge crew." Tay's hand moved subtly toward the emergency destruct control on his chair, a last resort that would vaporize the flagship and everyone aboard. Commander Ju noticed the movement and activated the device in her hand. Instantly, every electronic system on the bridge froze. "A localized EMP," she explained, "calibrated specifically for hegemony technology. Your self-destruct is offline." For the first time in his centuries-long career, Admiral Tay found himself without options. With cold dignity, he stood from his command chair. "I submit to capture," he stated formally. "Under interstellar convention, I demand treatment according to my rank." Ju's expression hardened. "You forfeited such considerations when you attacked civilian targets without declaration of war. You'll receive the justice you've earned." 3 days later, Admiral Tay found himself in a makeshift courtroom established in what had once been the United Nations General Assembly Hall in New York. Parts of the city still smoldered from hegemony attacks, the damaged skyline visible. Through the reinforced windows, the trial was unlike anything in hegemony history. Instead of summary execution, the fate Tay had expected, the humans had assembled representatives from every nation. Survivors from the devastated cities provided testimony. Evidence of the unprovoked attack was presented methodically. Surprisingly, Tay was permitted to speak in his defense. "I acted according to established conquest protocol," he stated, addressing the human judges with the same tone he would use with the Hegemony Council. "Your world was categorized as a Level 3 civilization, technologically capable but politically fragmented. Such worlds are designated for integration into the hegemony." "Integration?" asked Chief Justice Min, an elderly woman who had lost her entire family in the Shanghai attack. "You mean subjugation?" "A semantic distinction," Tay replied dismissively. What the Admiral didn't realize was that the entire proceedings were being broadcast. Human technicians had hijacked the hegemony's own communication network, using the encryptions codes they'd broken. Every word of testimony, every image of destruction, every defense Tay offered was streaming to hegemony ships and, more importantly, to worlds throughout hegemony space. For the first time, the subject peoples of the Empire were witnessing their masters held accountable. After 4 days of testimony, the verdict was delivered. To Tay's shock, it was not execution. "Admiral Tay, you have been found guilty of crimes against humanity," announced Justice Min. "However, your sentence is neither death nor imprisonment. You will be returned to the hegemony along with a message." The next day, Tay found himself aboard a small diplomatic vessel approaching the remainder of his battered fleet. Seated across from him was President Han, her expression unreadable. "Your people expect us to be barbarians," she said quietly. "They expect us to torture or execute you. That expectation reveals more about the hegemony than it does about humanity." As they reached the transfer point, Han handed Tai a small data crystal. "This contains complete records of your trial and our terms. Deliver them to your council." Tay accepted the crystal with a slight bow. "The hegemony does not negotiate with—" "This is not a negotiation," Han interrupted, steel in her voice. "This is a warning. We did not start this war, but we will finish it if you return. Humanity stood alone against your empire and bloodied your nose. Imagine what we'll do next time." As Tay stepped aboard his shuttle, he glanced back at the human president. For the first time, he saw these creatures not as primitives to be conquered, but as something the hegemony had never before encountered: equals. Perhaps even superiors in ways that mattered more than technology. It was a disturbing thought. The massive hangar bay of the lunar construction facility hummed with activity as workers made final adjustments to the gleaming vessel that dominated. The cavernous space. The ship's hull reflected the harsh lunar lighting, its sleek lines disguising the immense power contained within. 6 months of non-stop work had transformed captured hegemony technology into something new, something uniquely human. Admiral Yoon stood before the viewport overlooking the operation, her reflection ghostly against the backdrop of stars. The scars on her face had healed, but the ones inside remained. Mexico City's destruction had taken her family but given her purpose. "She's ready," said Chief Engineer Sue, joining her at the window. "We've incorporated everything we learned from their systems and improved on most of it." Yoon nodded. "And the crew? The best from every nation. They've been training in simulators for months." The Defiance represented humanity's greatest achievement, a deep space vessel capable of traveling between star systems using the same gravitational folding technology that had brought the hegemony to Earth. But unlike the hegemony's utilitarian warships, this vessel carried something more: hope. In the months following the invaders' retreat, Earth had changed fundamentally. Old borders and conflicts faded as the Earth Defense Alliance formed from the unity forged in resistance. Scientists and engineers from former rival nations worked side by side, rapidly advancing human technology by decades, with each hegemony secret they unraveled. Most valuable of all had been the data cores captured during the final battle. They contained not just technical specifications, but star charts, cultural information, and, crucially, details about the dozens of alien civilizations under hegemony control. "They've dominated the local galactic cluster for over 2,000 years, explained Intelligence Director Jun during the mission briefing. "Most conquered species have forgotten they were ever free. Now the Defiance would carry humanity's first ambassadors beyond the solar system. Their mission: contact these subjugated worlds and offer an alternative to endless servitude." As Yoon walked the corridors of her new command, crew members snapped to attention. Many bore visible reminders of the war: prosthetic limbs regenerated, tissue-haunted eyes. All had volunteered knowing they might never see Earth again. "Final systems check complete, Admiral," reported First Officer Lee as Yoon took her seat in the command chair. "All stations report ready for departure." Yoon surveyed the bridge, a blend of familiar human design and adapted alien technology. "Launch countdown initiated. Take us out, Navigator." The Defiance lifted silently from the lunar surface, accelerating with impossible smoothness as inertial dampeners negated the crushing forces. Behind the vessel, Earth and its moon shrank to bright points then disappeared entirely as the ship prepared for its first fold jump. "Coordinates locked for the Trilari homeworld," announced the navigator. "Fold drive charging." Yoon felt a moment of doubt. Were they ready for this? Humanity was taking its first steps into a hostile galaxy with only minimal understanding of the political landscape they were entering. Fold complete in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted around the ship, stars streaking into luminous ribbons. When normal space reasserted itself, a new sun burned before them, the first human vessel to reach another star system. The Trilari homeworld hung in space, a clouded green sphere banded with the artificial structures of hegemony occupation. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons pointed not at space, but at the planet below. "Life signs?" Yoon asked. "The Trilari appear to be mammalian," replied Science Officer Ha. "Surface population approximately 8 billion. Heavy hegemony presence in orbital facilities." Yoon took a deep breath. "Open all frequencies. Let's introduce ourselves." Across the galaxy, in the hegemony capital world, the High Council convened in emergency session. The cavernous chamber, designed to intimidate with its towering ceilings and harsh lighting, echoed with raised voices, a shocking breach of traditional decorum. "Admiral Tay's failure is unforgivable," thundered Councillor No, pounding his ceremonial staff against the floor. "We should mobilize the Grand Fleet immediately." Supreme Councillor Ryu raised a hand for silence. "The situation is more complex than simply one failed conquest. The humans' broadcast of Admiral Tay's trial has spread throughout our territories. On a dozen subjugated worlds, populations that had been docile for generations were showing troubling signs of restlessness. Reports of work stoppages, demonstrations, even isolated acts of sabotage flooded hegemony security channels. The humans' stand against overwhelming odds had kindled something dangerous. Hope. The contagion of rebellion must be contained, insisted No. "We should make an example of Earth, complete planetary sterilization." Admiral Tay, standing at the chamber's center as the accused, spoke for the first time. "With respect, Counselor, that approach misunderstands the human threat. They are not merely rebellious. They are adaptable. Their strength lies not in technology or numbers, but in their unpredictability." Before the Council could respond, an aide rushed in with urgent news. "Councillors, we've detected an unknown vessel appearing at the Trilari homeworld. It appears to be of human design, but utilizing fold technology." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Back at the Trilari system, the Defiance maintained position as hegemony patrol vessels scrambled in confusion. No new ship had entered this system without hegemony authorization in over 800 years. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Kwan. "Standard hegemony protocols demanding identification and immediate surrender." Hoon smiled thinly. "Ignore them. Focus on breaking through to the planetary communications network. The ship's advanced systems, designed with insights gained from the war, easily penetrated the outdated hegemony security protocols. Soon, they established direct contact with Trilari resistance cells that had maintained a secret underground network for generations. The first visual connection showed a being with mottled green skin and large, expressive eyes set in a slender face. The Trilari representative stared in wonder at the human bridge crew. You came from beyond? You are not hegemony?" The translator rendered in slightly delayed speech. "We are from Earth," Yoon replied. "A world that the hegemony tried to conquer and failed. We've come to offer you something the hegemony never has, partnership instead of subjugation." As the conversation continued, hegemony vessels began taking up attack positions. Weapons officers looked to Yoon for orders. "Defensive. Posture only," she commanded. "We didn't come this far to start another war." When the lead hegemony ship fired a warning shot across their bow, the Defiance responded with a precisely calibrated energy pulse that disabled the attacker's weapon systems without causing casualties. The other hegemony vessels hesitated, suddenly uncertain. Over the next hours, as word spread across the Trilari world, massive gatherings formed in public spaces. Billions watched through whatever communication devices they possessed as Admiral Yoon addressed them directly. For too long, The hegemony has ruled through fear and the belief that resistance is futile, she told them. Earth proved that false. We stand ready to share our knowledge, our technology, and our friendship with all peoples who choose freedom. As the Defiants prepared to depart for the next world on their journey, Yoon stood before the view screen showing the beautiful green planet below. The Trillari uprising had already begun, with hegemony forces falling back in disarray, before the sheer numbers of the population they had controlled through fear for centuries. The age of the hegemony is ending, she said quietly. The age of freedom has begun. Across the stars, on world after world, the story spread like wildfire, the legend of Earth, a small blue planet that had done the impossible. More than the technology they shared or the tactical knowledge they offered, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was the simple, powerful demonstration that tyranny was not inevitable. The spark had been lit. The galaxy would never be the same. The end.